Over 40 waves in tight siege endless mode with Belerick is actually insane. This might be the strongest endless mode tank built in MLBB ever. Yo, what's up guys, Levit here. Today I'm testing Belerick in tight siege endless mode, and honestly I didn't expect this hero to survive that long. The goal was simple, survive as many waves as possible, but somehow we reached over 40 waves and Belerick became basically unkillable. Let's see how far this build can actually go. So before we start, here's the build I use for this run. The core strategy is stacking HP, sustain and reflect damage, so enemies basically kill themselves attacking Belerick. I started with Guardian Helmet for insane regeneration, then focused on defensive items and HP scaling to survive the later waves. This setup becomes ridiculously strong after wave 20. Here's the Tide Ruin setup I used for this run. First, Trampling Aura. This constantly burns nearby enemies, so when huge waves surround Belerick, they just keep taking damage non-stop. Then I used Walking Spring for healing. This helped me survive the later waves when enemies started doing insane damage. Concussive Blast was also huge because every time I took damage, enemies around me got hit based on my max HP. Counterforce made Belerick even more broken by reducing damage and reflecting attacks back at the enemies. And finally, Root of Power. This one gives extra HP defense and cooldown reduction, which scales perfectly with Belerick's tank build. Basically, the more enemies attacked me, the faster they died. At the beginning, the waves felt pretty easy and manageable, so I was mostly just farming and testing how strong the build could become. But once the enemy numbers started increasing and the waves became more crowded, Belerick's passive started going absolutely insane. Every time enemies attacked me, they were basically damaging themselves because of all the reflected damage and area effects stacking together. The more enemies surrounded me, the stronger the build actually became. That's why I focused heavily on HP regeneration and sustain items early on. Instead of trying to deal burst damage, the strategy was to become an unkillable tank that slowly destroys everything around him, with Guardian Helmet healing me constantly and the Tide Runes adding extra burn damage, healing and defense. Belerick became harder and harder to kill every wave. Once the later runs started, the screen was completely filled with enemies, but somehow the build kept surviving. At that point, it honestly stopped feeling normal because Belerick was healing, reflecting damage and clearing waves all at the same time. This build becomes absolutely ridiculous in late game, especially after wave 20 when enemy damage starts scaling like crazy. I've tested a lot of different heroes in tight siege endless mode, but honestly Belerick feels completely different from everyone else. Some heroes like Cecilion, Guard or Xavier can clear waves really fast in the early game because of their huge area damage. At first, they actually look stronger than Belerick since they can wipe out enemies before they even get close. But once the waves start getting harder and enemies become insanely tanky, those heroes begin struggling to survive. Their damage is still good, but the problem is staying alive when the screen gets completely flooded with enemies. Belerick is basically the opposite. He might start slower early on, but the longer the match goes, the stronger he becomes. Everything in this build scales perfectly with HP, healing, sustain and reflected damage. So instead of getting weaker in late game, Belerick becomes harder and harder to kill. That's what makes him so broken in endless mode. Compared to other tanks like Healers or Uranus, Belerick feels much safer because enemies constantly trigger his passive every time they attack him. When huge waves surround you, they're basically damaging themselves non-stop, and with these tight runes the build becomes even crazier. Trampling Aura keeps burning nearby enemies. Walking Spring gives an extra sustain. Concussive Blast adds more HP based damage, and Counter Force helps reduce incoming damage while reflecting attacks back. So at some point I'm not even trying to attack anymore, the enemies literally destroy themselves just by hitting Belerick. That's why I think he might secretly be one of the best heroes for Tide Siege Endless mode. If this video does well, I definitely want to make more Endless mode content because this mode is actually really fun to experiment with. I'm planning to test other tank heroes too, like Helios, Uranus, and maybe even some weird or cursed builds that probably shouldn't work. I also want to compare which hero can survive the highest waves and see who's actually the strongest in Tide Siege Endless mode. So if you guys want more MLBB challenge videos, build experiments or Endless mode runs, make sure to let me know in the comments. And if you have any crazy hero suggestions, drop them below because I'm always looking for new ideas to try in future videos. I also want to try reaching even higher than 40 waves because honestly this build still feels like it has a lot more potential. And if you guys want, I can also try pushing for a new personal record next time and see just how far Belerick can really go in Tide Siege Endless mode. What makes this run even crazier is that every new wave feels more stressful than the last one, because once you reach higher waves, one small mistake can instantly end the entire run. There are moments where my HP suddenly drops, the screen fills with effects, I can barely even say what's happening anymore. But somehow Belerick just keeps surviving. The sustain in this build is honestly ridiculous, so this helps me a lot. That's why watching entire waves slowly destroying themselves while I'm just trying to stay alive is honestly one of the funnest things I've experienced in MLBB Endless mode. So alright guys, that's gonna be the end of this Endless mode run. Honestly, I still can't believe Belerick managed to survive over 40 waves in Tide Siege. I expected the run to end way earlier, but once the build started scaling with all the HP healing and reflect damage, this hero became almost impossible to kill. The combination of the Tide runes, sustain and tank items made this build feel completely broken in the late game. Watching enemies basically destroy themselves while attacking me was actually insane. This was definitely one of the craziest MLBB Endless mode matches I've played so far, and I'm probably going to try pushing even higher waves in the future videos. If you enjoyed the gameplay, make sure to leave a like and subscribe because I'll be testing more heroes, more builds and more challenge runs very soon. And comment below what hero should I try next in Tide Siege Endless mode. Thanks for watching till the end and I'll see you guys in the next video.